YouTube! I am Pinstar, and this is Stellaris Strategy and Tactics. So today's topic, we are going to talk about the changes to population growth in 3.0. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions is that population growth has decreased somehow. It hasn't, but it also has. But you know what? There's a lot of things floating around out there of people trying to explain how it works. I'm sure you may have seen this chart floating around, or maybe this lovely little equation bouncing around if you've been poking around in the wiki. But what does it mean? What is the actual in-game effect of this housing change? And more importantly, how can we use that to our advantage? Well, let me show you. Let's start at a couple of important parts to look at when you are looking at what is your current population growth rate. So we are here on Paradaya. Yeah, I got that quest line. So we have ourselves a beautiful size 25 Gaia world with all kinds of positive modifiers. And we are currently growing a pop of the red. Now, a couple of things to note here. Yes, we have a 5.13 growth per month. That's actually not the figure that we want to pay attention to. You see that base growth 3.0 there? That is probably the first bit of sauce that we're looking for. What is that base growth, and what can we do to manipulate that? Well, right now, base growth, the sort of the baseline base growth for a brand new colony is at 3.0. So you get 3 population points per month. Base obviously modified up or down by different techs and boosts and other modifiers and what have you. And then you have immigration thrown in there. Immigration's another video. But what's important is that baseline, because obviously the higher the base, the more prominent all those positive bonuses are. But right now, we are stuck at the baseline base. The base growth can go all the way up to a 6, but here we are sitting at 3. Why? I mean, after all, this is a beautiful Gaia world. 100% habitability for everybody. Size 25, and there's only 9 people here, so it ain't overcrowding. Well, that's the problem. There's only 9 people here. Whenever, while they may have done away with the new colony 50% penalty that used to have in 2.8 and earlier, what they replaced it with is a cap. Basically, base growth can only ever be 3.0 for a brand new colony until that colony hits 10. And as we can see, we're sitting here only at 9. But luckily, we are sitting. We are about to cross that threshold. Now, the other bit of pop growth that I want to point your attention to is the assembly slot. So every planet has a growth slot. You can only ever grow one pop at a time. Usually it'll be one of your own pops, but if you have, immigration treaties or migration treaties, or you have different aliens living on different worlds, that could be a different species that'll start growing on your world. But on the flip side, there's the assembling slot. The assembling slot and the growing slot are 2 different buckets for population growth. Now, the assembling slot is more commonly used for robots, for assembling, robots, droids, and synths later on. But with in this particular empire, we have taken the first biological ascension perk, and that has allowed us to construct a cloning vat. And what the cloning vat essentially does is it allows you to make use of your assembly slot, but for biological pops. There's also a similar building for hive minds to sort of assemble drones there too. But normally this slot is for robots. But either way, it is a separate bucket that tracks its own population growth and can be growing something different from the natural growth on the planet. It also tracks its total separately. So, this could be, 219. This one is at 231. So this one's actually going to produce its pop sooner. But even when this empties out and starts working on a new pop, this one isn't going to empty out until it reaches its growth progress. So essentially, it's usually a good thing to have your assembly slot being used for something, be it a robot or another biological pop. Now, a couple of interesting things are going to happen here when we cross the threshold into a 10 pop. We are no longer bound by this base growth. By the way, the assembly is usually a fixed amount. Notice how that there's no percentage growth bonuses to here. We get 3 a month, and that's it. So it's not quite as potent as the natural growth, but it's still extra growth, so we ain't gonna complain. Anyway, once we cross this threshold here into a 10, we're gonna see something change here. And this is sort of where you can sort of start setting up your worlds to be more and more reproductive and get your population growing faster and faster. Allow me to demonstrate. Okay, so I've advanced time just a little bit, and our first our assembled pop has been added to the mix. So as you can see, the bucket on this has emptied and will start building back up again, while this bucket is nearly full and will be producing shortly. But now, if we look at this, notice anything different? Yeah, see right there, next to base growth is still 3.0, but then next to it you see plus 0.11 from pops. So now we're getting into the more accelerated growth. We've broken out of our 3.0 growth cap here from us being a colony, a pre-10 population colony. Now what happens is, as your population grows on the world, so will your growth speed. Because right now it's basically, the idea is that the more people there are on a world to breed, the faster and faster they'll all breed, as long as there's room. And there is a lot of room on here. This is a planet size 24. We have a planet capacity of 143. Keep in mind, the capacity is not necessarily a literal, you can hold 143 pops. It is a capacity rating that is modified by blockers, or rather a lack thereof, and there's only one blocker currently present on this planet. Also by the amount of housing that we have, and we have a rather abundance of housing here, so we're pretty good on that front. Might as well kick that off while we're at it. So yeah, but watch what happens to the growth rate next to the base growth when this next pop actually finishes growing and actually adds and makes the population 11. Boom. Now we're up to 0.43. So with the addition of just one more pop to the mixture, we've got ourselves a relative spike in growth. Now keep in mind, that is adding, that 0.43 is adding itself to the base growth, which is then being modified and bonused by the genome mapping and cloning and a new life and all that stuff. You also have the immigration growth with its own thing. But again, immigration, migration, that's another video. Now, so ideally speaking, this increases until you reach a maximum base growth of 6, which is a base growth of 3, and then plus 3 from pops. And that happens depending on the relative size of the world and how much space you've freed up on it, around the 25 pop mark. If we look here at, I think it's Umara. Yeah, Umara's grown a little bit past the 25 pop mark, but if we look at here, we are getting a base growth of 3 plus full 3 from pops. Now, granted, we are growing randomly a lithoid here, so we have to endure that penalty, but still, this planet is growing its population as fast as possible. It's also assembling some bots here. So this is the kind of thing that you want. Now, it doesn't increase like this forever. Obviously, 6 is the cap, but eventually, as the planet fills up, you're gonna start seeing a slowdown. If we take a look here at, say, our Empire capital, Porkroll, we have 61 pops on here, and the planet capacity is 72. we're getting close to basically what the planet can hold. And while we have housing, we have extra housing, we could build even more housing if we really wanted to. That doesn't stop the fact that the planet's filling up. And as such, our bonus is decreasing. See how we're only a +1/1 from pops? That we are at the tail end. It's been decreasing for a while. So the natural growth we're getting out of our capital is not so good. Now, what can you, the player, do to sort of get around this? To make sure that you're firing on sixes as much as possible, while still actually utilizing your planets. Well, what you'll want to do is you want to fill your planet to about 80% of its capacity or so. Basically, fill it up until you start seeing the base growth, the maximum bonus for base growth start to tick down, and then stop making jobs there. What that will do is that will, as pops grow, cause unemployment. And then at that point, you can either, depending on your empire's ethics, manually move the pops over to a younger world, a less populated world, so that you still get your 6.0 base growth here, or let the pops remain unemployed for a while, and they'll eventually migrate on their own if you allow them, again, based on your empire's ethics. So that way you can basically fill up your worlds to the brim, so that they keep producing more and more. Well, they all you want to keep as many worlds ticking at a base of 6 as possible. As that's especially useful if you have a natural bonus, if you took like rapid breeders or things like that, because then that higher base gets multiplied by the rapid breeder and you get even more bonus population growth. So you want that's sort of the way you keep your worlds policed. Obviously, I have not been doing that with my world here. This is more of an experimental empire that I've been testing my theories on. Now, there is one more caveat to this whole thing, and one more kind of a downer. And I think probably this is what a lot of people have been complaining about. And that is the empire population cap. Now, it's not even a cap. That's bad terminology. It's an empire population penalty. Essentially, the more pops you get in your empire, across your empire, no matter how many worlds you bring under your fold, and now no matter how much extra housing those worlds have, the more population you have in your empire, the longer it takes to grow a pop. Notice there's one more number here that we need to pay attention to. See where it says up here, growth progress, 154.9 out of 247.5. That 247.5 is what we need to reach in order to get our next pop. And while yes, we can reach that number faster by employing the techniques that I mentioned before, the fact of the matter is once a pop gets created, that number to reach goes up by 0.5. So as soon as a pop grows anywhere in the empire, we're going to need 248, and then 248.5, and then so on and so forth. And then once you get to the late game and into the later empire, you need so much more population that, no amount of these, making sure your worlds are at 6.0 base and getting 1 million bonuses and immigration and all that fun stuff, it's still going to take freaking forever to get a pop. So that's kind of what people are complaining about. Now, granted, that's kind of by design, because the thing that was slowing the late game performance to a crawl was an excess of pops. So this is a way to try and curtail those pops in there. Don't believe me? Let me show you how this appears on here. So in our empire, we have a total of 78 pops. 78 pops. Not actually that big of an empire. This is sort of early mid-game-ish, have a nice swath of territory, but we are by no means, the owner of half the galaxy here. So keep that in mind. 78 pops across 14 worlds, and it takes us 247.5 to grow a pop anywhere. So now we contrast that with a game that we've literally just started. So I started up a brand new game, and this empire happens to start with 28 pops. Now, if we look at that 28 pops here, they only need to grow 100. They only need 100 growth points to get a new population point. So you can see our empire of about double that needs a bit more than double the amount of growth points just to get a single pop. And when you start getting galaxy-wide reaching planets here, that's when growth slows to a halt. So, getting all of your worlds firing at a base of 6 is probably your best bet. But eventually the empire cap will catch up with you and slow things to a halt. But that's no reason not to try to keep your base going at a 6 whenever possible, because the faster you get those pops out, the earlier you get their benefit, and the larger your population and the more resources you have available to you, which generally helps you do better. So keep that in mind. Plan your planets out, clear those blockers to get your capacity higher. As you notice here, there's a size 19 planet. We only have a capacity of 56, but that's because we are lacking in housing. Well, not lacking in it, but there's less housing total, but there's also 3 blockers. When clearing those blockers, that frees up extra capacity. Even if you're not necessarily utilizing those districts right now. So keep that in mind, and I hope this helps you grow your empires big and prosperous. If you guys like this episode and you want to see more like it, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hey, if this helped you out, or if you know someone who might need a little extra help in understanding how the new population system works in 3.0, by all means, please share this video with them. I enjoy the exposure, and I want to help people get up to speed with the new normal, as it were, in Stellaris. By the way, this video is all accurate as of 3.02. Obviously, if they change or tweak the formula, then this will be slightly out of date. But look into the comments section, and I'll post a comment explaining any differences in what I said in this video versus what Paradox may have changed. But until next time, this has been Pinstar signing out. See ya!